Rachel Zegler lost her mind after her wokeness was crushed by none other than South Park. They took aim at the latest attempt by Disney to push their so-called woke agenda.
Eric, it's okay. It's okay.
Mom, I had a dream that...
Honestly, nobody's surprised. South Park has been best known for calling out the absurdities of woke culture, and Disney's recent stunt with their Snow White remake practically had a target painted on them. But it looks like Rachel Zegler, Disney's chosen Snow White, isn't laughing. Word on the street is that she's not just upset, she's fuming over the parody and all the backlash that's been swirling around her role. So South Park aired an episode called Into the Pandiverse. The title alone tells you everything you need to know. In classic South Park fashion, they didn't hold back. The gender and race swapped beloved characters like Cartman, Stan, Butters, and Kenny into adult women of color. It was an obvious jab at what Disney's been doing lately, reworking classic stories, swapping characters, and throwing tradition out the window to appeal to a modern audience. But the satire didn't just stop there. It was a full-blown roast of everything people have been criticizing about Disney's recent remakes. Let's talk about Snow White. The casting of Rachel Zegler, who's Latina, sparked a lot of debate, especially since the original Snow White was literally named for having skin as white as snow. But what about Rachel now? It's become a big issue. Fans raised concerns that the connection just doesn't make any sense anymore. And honestly, they're not wrong, but it's not just the casting that has people rolling their eyes. Disney's decided to overhaul the story entirely, stripping away key elements that made it a beloved classic. Romance? Gone, the prince practically erased. 7 dwarves say goodbye to them. It's almost like Disney's trying to make the story unrecognizable on purpose.
There will be no dwarf actors at all working on this film, and in a live action, which means we're supposed to translate from animation to...
She hasn't exactly helped her case with fans. In an interview, she's been called out for sounding dismissive and frankly entitled about her role. She's made it clear she's not a fan of the original story, describing it as outdated and problematic. In one interview, she even joked about snacks on set being apple-flavored, as if it were some kind of personal attack. Really, Rachel? That's what we're focusing on? It's no wonder fans are frustrated. They feel like she's trashing a cherished fairy tale to push this new version that doesn't feel like Snow White at all. Now, here's where it gets even messier. Rachel's comment about the prince raised more than a few eyebrows. She hinted that romance is no longer part of the story, saying it's not about the love story at all. She even joked about the possibility of cutting all his scenes. Whether or not she was being serious, the tone rubbed people the wrong way. Fans aren't just upset about the changes. They're upset about how those changes are being framed like the original story was somehow wrong or inferior. And don't even get me started on the 7 dwarves. Disney didn't just tweak them, they completely changed the concept. The original story was built around Snow White's connection to these characters, and now everything related to it is gone. It's another example of how far Disney's willing to go to rewrite its classics, and people aren't accepting it at all. If you're going to remake a generational film, shouldn't the goal be to honor its legacy, not erase it?
We all loved growing up that are sadly being forgotten in this new adaptation. I also don't know who is more excited, this guy or me, because the way he was bouncing in that video.
This isn't the first time Disney's faced backlash for these kinds of changes. Just look at The Little Mermaid. Casting Hailey Bailey as Ariel sparked a wave of controversy. But that film still managed to retain much of its original charm. In Little Mermaid's case, fans have ranted about the casting, though the story stayed true to its roots. Problematically, that's not the case with Snow White. With so many drastic changes, fans feel like Disney is pandering to an agenda instead of creating something authentic. And when you add Rachel's tone-deaf interviews into the scenario, it makes the situation even more unacceptable for fans. Of course, South Park saw all of this and capitalized on it. They've always had a knack for holding up a mirror to society's absurdities, and their Pandiverse episode is no exception. By race and gender swapping their own iconic characters, they took the satire to a whole new level, showing just how ridiculous some of these decisions can be when taken to the extreme. And let's be real, South Park doesn't care whose feelings they hurt. Disney isn't the first to feel their sting, and they definitely won't be the last.